You think you know who you are. You have a name, a personality, a set of preferences. Maybe a title, achievements, or stories you're proud of. Your sense of self has been shaped by repetition, by what people expect, by what you've been praised for, by what you've survived. Carl Jung would disagree. What you call yourself isn't you. It's a mask, a persona, a performance that stayed on so long it became permanent. And until you strip it away, until you face what lives behind it, you will never meet your true self. Jung didn't believe self-discovery was gentle. He saw it as war. Not against others, but against the image you've been protecting your entire life. The image you built to stay loved, accepted, safe, and unthreatening. Most people would rather be liked than real. Rather be consistent than free. Rather keep a clean image than risk the chaos of wholeness. But you're still here. That means something in you is ready. Something is tired of the mask. Something is hungry, not for motivation or more information, but for yourself. The version you buried long ago. This is not a conversation. This is a confrontation. You're about to meet the parts of you you've been running from. You're about to dig up the bones you buried as a child, the patterns you learned to keep others comfortable, the rebellion in your chest every time you pretend. This is individuation. This is becoming. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You don't find yourself through quizzes or vision boards. You find yourself by turning inward, into the dark, into the chaos, into the shadow. The shadow is everything you've repressed. The anger you swallowed. The selfishness you denied. The desires you buried. The thoughts you weren't allowed to think. The versions of you that didn't win approval. Over time you split. You created the persona, polite, agreeable, predictable, safe. Kept you loved, praised, and accepted. But it came at a cost. The longer you wore it, the more you forgot what you were hiding. Now you confuse the mask with your face. People around you only know the edited version. And here's the truth. You can't become whole by perfecting the persona. You only become whole by integrating the shadow. So what have you repressed? Not what you dislike, what you fear others would dislike. Maybe you were too loud, too quiet, too intense, too ambitious, too emotional, too honest. So you edited yourself. Each edit took you further from your instincts, your edge, your truth. You became palatable, but never free. Achieving, performing, maintaining, yet empty. Not because you're broken, but because you've been living as half a person. Jung saw it everywhere. People who called themselves good but were quietly resentful. Calm on the surface but boiling underneath. Giving endlessly but feeling invisible. Successful but hollow. If you build a life from the persona, you lose access to the soul. That's why self-help often fails. It polishes the mask instead of removing it. You don't need improvement. You need integration. You need to retrieve what's yours, your fire, instincts, clarity, rage, desire, hunger. And yes, it will cost you. You will lose relationships that love the mask. You will feel guilt for choosing yourself, but you will breathe freely for the first time in years. Jung knew the price of truth was loneliness, but the reward, freedom. You stop asking, will they like me? You start asking, is this real? You stop asking, am I good? You start asking, am I true? Truth is not always nice. It's sharp. It's silent. It's messy. But it's you. The more truth you integrate, the less control the world has over you. You stop folding under pressure. You stop shrinking to fit. You walk with all of you, shadow included, and people feel it. They may not understand, but they feel it. You become someone they can't label, can't manipulate, can't predict. You become a mirror to their own avoidance. That's your power, not to be loved, but to be whole. You're not here for perfection. You're here to be undeniably you. You want to be whole, but you keep getting pulled back into the performance. You tell yourself you'll stop pretending, that you'll speak the truth next time, that you'll hold the line. But the moment comes, and you find yourself slipping into the same role you've always played. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. The traps that keep you split are subtle. They disguise themselves as safety, kindness, even strength. The first trap is approval. You think you're choosing connection, but you're bargaining for it. You trade truth for acceptance. You adjust your edges so no one feels cut. And every time you do, you confirm the lie that the real you is too much." The second trap is conflict avoidance. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace. But peace without honesty is just tension in disguise. The problem doesn't disappear, it rots in the silence, and you carry the weight of all the conversations you never had. The third trap is image. You've built a version of yourself people admire. You don't want to risk losing it, so you hide the parts that don't fit the image. You edit your words, your emotions, your ambitions to protect the brand you've built around your own name. Nietzsche said, "I'm not upset that you lied to me, I'm upset that from now on I can't believe you." When you lie to yourself about who you are, you lose the ability to trust your own reflection. The fourth trap is comfort. It's the most seductive one. You know how to live in the familiar. You know the rules. You know the roles. Even if they keep you small, at least you know the script. But comfort is a slow poison. It dulls your instincts. It makes you forget you have claws. It convinces you the cage is safer than the open sky. Carl Jung also said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Breaking these traps will hurt. You will feel exposed. You will lose the certainty that comes from staying hidden." But that's the point. The fifth trap is comparison. You measure yourself against others who are also wearing masks. You compete in a game where no one is playing honestly. And even when you win, you feel hollow, because you were never chasing your own definition of victory. The final trap is loyalty to the past. You stay committed to choices you've outgrown, because changing them would mean admitting you were wrong. But you're not here to be consistent with who you used to be. You're here to be loyal to who you are now. These traps are not random. They are the architecture of your persona. They keep the mask in place. They keep the shadow out of sight. Breaking them will cost you. Approval will fade. Conflict will find you. Your image will shift. Comfort will vanish. Comparison will lose its anchor. The past will stop defining you. But in that empty space, you will finally hear yourself. Not the rehearsed voice, not the edited thoughts, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When you stop reacting from the traps, you start acting from the core. The traps will still call to you. They will whisper that you're safer where you were. They will remind you of the comfort of pretending. But each time you choose wholeness over the mask, the voice gets weaker. You are not meant to be split. You are meant to be one. And the moment you stop feeding these traps, the mask begins to crumble, not with force, but with disuse. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of you you've ignored, the part you've hidden, the part you've denied to keep the mask intact. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The shadow is that unconscious force. It shapes your choices without your permission. It leaks into your words. It drives your reactions. It lives in the corners you refuse to look at. Most people avoid their shadow. They fear what they'll find. They think it's only made of ugly, destructive impulses. But the shadow holds more than that. It holds your suppressed strength, your unclaimed confidence, your boundaries that were never allowed to form, your desires you were taught to be ashamed of. Avoiding the shadow doesn't make it disappear. It makes it stronger. It makes it act out through you when you least expect it. A sudden burst of anger, a silent resentment, a jealousy you can't explain. These are not random, they are messages from the shadow. Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." The shadow is that chaos. It is raw energy. If you face it, you can direct it. If you refuse, it will direct you. Meeting the shadow begins with honesty. Not the polished honesty you share for approval. The brutal honesty you keep from yourself. What do you envy? What do you judge harshly in others? What do you secretly desire but publicly condemn? The answers to these questions are clues. The shadow is revealed in your triggers. When someone provokes you, when a situation makes you irrationally uncomfortable, when a person's freedom annoys you, the shadow is speaking. Carl Jung also said, "The gold is in the dark." What you reject in yourself often holds the exact qualities you need to become whole. Maybe your suppressed anger is actually your lost ability to defend yourself. Maybe your envy is showing you the life you want to build. Maybe your shame is pointing to the parts of you that are most alive. Facing the shadow is not about indulging every impulse. It's about understanding it. It's about seeing where it came from. It's about choosing how to use that energy. You don't integrate the shadow by talking about it once. You integrate it by letting it have a seat at the table. You listen to it without letting it take over. You stop pretending it isn't there. The more you do this, the less it sabotages you. The less it explodes in moments you can't control. The more it becomes an ally instead of a threat. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The shadow must be guided by this principle. You don't give it free rein. You give it direction. When you can look at your shadow without flinching, you take away its power to scare you. You see it not as a monster, but as a part of you that has been waiting for your acceptance. And when you accept it, the mask loses its purpose. Because the mask was built to hide what you now own. Meeting the shadow is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of living without fear of yourself. Integration is not a moment. It is a practice. It is the ongoing work of bringing every part of you into the same room. Carl Jung said, "I'd rather be whole than good." This is the essence of integration, choosing authenticity over an image, wholeness over approval. The persona and the shadow cannot stay enemies. They must learn to coexist. The mask gave you survival. The shadow holds your depth. Without both, you are incomplete. Integration begins when you stop rejecting the parts of you you've judged. It requires listening to discomfort instead of silencing it. It requires admitting what you want, even if it scares you. It requires owning your contradictions without apology. You are not meant to be a single, polished personality. You are meant to be a complex human being, capable of love and anger, patience and urgency, gentleness and power. Nietzsche said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." That chaos is not something to eliminate. It is something to integrate. It is the creative tension between your light and your dark. Integration is not about balance in the sense of equal parts. It is about harmony. It's about knowing when to lead with softness and when to lead with steel. It's about using the shadow's fire without burning down your own life. The integrated self doesn't need constant validation. It doesn't need to perform. It doesn't collapse when challenged. It doesn't hide in comfort or comparison. It can stand in conflict without losing its center. It can take criticism without spiraling. It can love without disappearing. Carl Jung also said, "The gold is in the dark." When you integrate, you claim that gold. You mine it from the places you once feared. You use it to fuel the life you want, instead of letting it fuel your self-sabotage. Integration changes how you move through the world. You no longer see parts of yourself as enemies to be defeated. You see them as resources to be understood. Even the parts that once brought you shame become tools for clarity. This doesn't mean you indulge every impulse. It means you stop lying about them. It means you take responsibility for your full self. It means you decide how your energy is used, instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your shadow was the impediment. Now it becomes the way. Integration isn't glamorous. It's slow. It's repetitive. It's choosing the harder conversation instead of the polite silence. It's keeping your own word when no one is watching. It's saying no without rehearsing an apology. The more you practice it, the more natural it feels. You stop fighting yourself. You stop splitting into acceptable and unacceptable parts. You stop living half a life. And when you walk into the world as a whole person, something changes in how others see you. They can feel you are not hiding. They can sense you are not easy to manipulate. They may not understand why, but they will know they are dealing with someone real. Integration is freedom. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The kind where you can breathe fully, because there is nothing left to hide from yourself. Living as your true self is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a different kind of life. A life where your choices come from alignment, not from fear. A life where your voice is steady because you are no longer asking for permission to use it. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This privilege is not given, it is claimed. You do not wake up one morning suddenly free from the mask. You choose over and over to stay close to yourself. You choose truth when it would be easier to lie. You choose boundaries when it would be easier to give in. You choose presence when it would be easier to disappear. Living as your true self will cost you. Some people will not understand you anymore. Some will say you've changed. Some will miss the version of you that made them comfortable. Let them. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." He did not say, "Become who they want you to be." He did not say, "Become the safe version of yourself." You cannot live authentically while trying to preserve every relationship, every expectation, every image you've ever built. Living as your true self means allowing what no longer fits to fall away. It means trusting that the space left behind is not emptiness, but room for something better. This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is not about rejecting everything you once were. It is about keeping only what is real. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This becomes your compass. Not what is easiest. Not what will make you liked. What is right. What is true. The more you live this way, the less you think about whether others approve. You stop needing to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop performing. You also stop overthinking. Because there is nothing to calculate when you are simply being yourself. Your yes is a yes. Your no is a no. Your boundaries are not negotiations. Carl Jung also said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you." Living as your true self means you already have the answer. And you live it so clearly that you never need to speak it aloud. This is not a life without challenges. Pain will still find you. Loss will still come. But they will not take you away from yourself. You will grieve without losing your ground. You will adapt without abandoning your values. You will stand in the storm without begging for shelter from those who cannot give it. This is the real freedom, not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of self through it all. When you live as your true self, you do not chase peace. You create it. You do not chase respect. You embody it. You do not chase belonging. You choose where you belong, and every step you take from this place reminds you that you are no longer living a role. You are living a life.